Very good morning to all of you, dear learners. Today we have with us Dr. Ranjit Kaur. She is a technical expert, Director of Environment and Climate Change, Haryana Government of Haryana. She has done her MSc in botany and did her PhD in the watershed management by using GIS-RS. She has vast experience in especially working in remote areas, and we are part of a team where we extensively traveled that is Ranjit, that is Uttarkashi
Yeah,
area, right? Yeah,
Uttarkashi, yeah.
Uttarkashi area, Jammu, Ruinsara Lake and other important watershed where we were working towards improving that holistic approach of watershed management. So, in some, what I can say is she has that kind of expertise where she has done extensive work in grassroots level, and also that kind of expertise where she can easily use those that field experience by using technology, that remote sensing GIS technology, and using whatever she learned during her PhD and during the course of that her study in policy formulation in different states. Recently also she was in Jaipur, that 1 year, 2 year back, she was in Jaipur. That in that time also she was working under government of Rajasthan in some consultancy work. Okay, with this brief introduction, I welcome you, Dr. Ranjit, on behalf of the
Mm-hmm.
Indira Gandhi National Open University Regional Center,
Mm-hmm.
Delhi 2, who has taken the responsibility to conduct this counseling session to promote sustainable science program across the world. So, with this, I again welcome you. I invite for the session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharad, for this warm welcome. I also feel myself very fortunate to be a part of your team. And I also welcome all the students. So let us start up with this topic. We'll be discussing some issues regarding the watershed-based management of natural resources for sustaining ecosystem services. So we'll be covering block 3, that is approaches to sustainable development, unit 1 and unit 3, that is the natural resource management and watershed management. So, starting with the natural resources, what are the natural resources? They are the natural gift which nature has given to us. The nature has created these natural resources. We have not created that, but we are using it and over exploiting these natural resources. So, what are the natural resources? Actually, they include the natural substance, all soil, water, energy supplies, coal, gas, likewise. So components of natural resources, then we come to the components of natural resources. It consists of the atmosphere, forest, atmosphere. In atmosphere it contains various air, wind, forest. It contains plants, animal, microorganisms, which are responsible for various cycles, ecosystem services. Also they are besides which they provides the goods and services, they also store the carbon. They are sequestering the carbon, which is also very important aspect of this natural resource. Then the rangeland and pasture. The rangelands are the grasslands. The rangelands also consist of the various it is the house to various biodiversity, habitat to numerous wildlife, fishes. It is the source of wood product, source of water. Soils. The healthy soils depicts the healthy ecosystem. It is the most important and essential natural resources. Soil is a complex of dynamic blend of rock particles, minerals, air, water, living being, and dead and decaying organic materials. The health, the healthy ecosystem, it greatly depends what kind of soil it is there. Vegetation also depends on the same thing. Then is the water. Water is also most important. It is found in ocean, sea, lakes, river, and groundwater. Then is the energy. Energy, the sun's energy, which is stored in plants during photosynthesis, it is passed through the food chain to other organisms and ultimately to the all life processes. So these are the components of natural resources. Then we come to the classification of natural resources. What is the how the natural resources are classified on the basis of various kind of origins? They are classified, like starting with the biotic and abiotic classification. Biotic means living. Abiotic means non-living. Biotic living means they are found in the biosphere. For example, forest, animal, birds, microorganisms, mineral fuels, etc. Abiotic, that is non-living in nature, found in land, air, and water. Then the second, we come to the second classification, that is on the basis of renewability. One is the renewable resources and another is non-renewable resources. The resources that can be replenished or reproduced easily. Example, sunlight, air, water are the renewable resources, and non-renewable resources are those that could not be renewed, that were formed over very long geological periods. Example, minerals and fossil fuels. Then the classification is also based on the right of stakeholders, like state property, where the ownership is belonging to the state governments. For example, the national parks. If you want to work there, we need to require the permission from the state authority. Then there are private properties. The individual own that property. Then there are some common properties also, like community forests, rivers, which are managed by a group of people. Then that another classification is non-property, that is open access. Like this, there is no definite owner of this property. Like for example, air has no owner. Similarly, the groundwater has no owner. So this kind of resources come under this property. So the question is, why do you want to conserve the natural resources? What are the factors why this natural resource, which is a gift from the God, why it is being depleted at a faster rate? We are not using it wisely. We are not using it optimally. We are just over exploiting the resources. Just we are not giving time to so that it can replenish. We are just taking all the resources without giving a thought how it can sustain itself. So the main factor is the exploitation of natural resources. The rate is much higher than the resource. It is not getting the time to replenish. So the cause is also the overpopulation, the dramatic increase in demand due to the increase in population is the basic reason for this, which which is creating the deforestation, soil erosion, imbalance, inviting the various hazards, natural hazards, socioeconomic disparity. All these are being caused by this overexploitation of natural resources. Then is the forest fire. Forest fire, it is a very simple term, but it is a very complex thing. It does not only destroys the natural ecosystem, the flora, the fauna, the trees, the microorganisms, the goods, the which a forest is providing. Also, it also creates the pollution. It also creates a lot of pollution. The forest fire can be classified into the three parts, that is intentional, accidental, and also the natural fires. But ultimately, whatever may be the reasons, the fire takes a huge shape. Ultimately, it whatever it may be, ground fire or crown fire. There are other types of also they have classified, but intentionally it takes the shape of very um, destructive shape it takes. So intentional fire is that some villagers, if they are in the village, they are setting some fire for um, removing the grass growth, so they can have the good production. So they are the intentional fire. Accidental fires, some people, for example, they went to a forest and they uh, they just threw with the matchsticks or bidi or cigarette sticks, then the accidental fires come up. And the natural fires, due to some natural reasons, some lightning, etc., they are the cause of the national forest fires. Then we come to the soil erosion. Soil erosion, that with the loss of vegetation cover, the soil erosion occurs, and which is the cause of siltation in the downstream areas. The land which which are the denuded of the vegetation cover, they are highly prone to landslides. Then the unscientific development activities, they are also the reason of the soil erosion. Then is next point is the weed invasion and climate change. Climate change is also depleting the natural resources. The climate change is a buzzword these days. So it is also a very many policies, many action plans being proposed, or they are under process to tackle this climate change with adaptation and mitigation policies. Then there's a natural physical disaster. They also are responsible for the natural resource degradation. So in this diagram, we can, in a nutshell, we can see how the biodiversity loss is affecting the habitat changes, how it is affecting the forest product and supply and demand, how this climate changes, due to climate changes, emissions are increasing, how it is changing the precipitation and temperature, and how this precipitation and temperatures is eventually affecting the agriculture productivity, which intimately is affecting the food supply and demand supply. Water pollution is increasing, soil nutrient is decreasing, fresh water supply demand is also affected by the biodiversity loss. Ultimately, this natural resource base or biodiversity, it is linked with the ecosystem services. The biodiversity, the genotype, species, the number, abundance, composition, interaction, and spatial distribution, it is the base for the ecosystem processes. Like primary and secondary production is affected by it. Nutrient cycle is based on this. Evapotranspiration, resilience, all these are dependent upon our natural resource base or the biodiversity. Ultimately, they are linked to the ecosystem services. That is the soil formation, regulation of water quality, pollination and seed dispersal, provision of good habitat, resistance to invasive organism, climate regulation, providing the goods, that is food, fiber, fuel, knowledge system, spiritual and religious values, sense of place. So ultimately, these services are linked to our human well-being. That is our health, our security, our identity. They provide the basic material for good life. Also, it is responsible for the this. Also, it is responsible for the overall balanced ecosystem. Some effects of climate change and this global warming is also being felt on our agriculture. This extreme weathers they have. This is depicted in this diagram in this right side. So long-term fluctuation in weather pattern could have extreme effect on agriculture production, slashing crop yields, forcing farmers to adopt new agriculture policies in the response to altered conditions. So with the altered condition due to climate change, many changes will occur. There will be a lot of migrations. The people will move. The whole ecosystem, the balance plus the socio-economic conditions, everything is under change. So the approaches applied for natural resource management, it may be the integrated approaches, it may be adaptive, precautionary, community-based natural resource management, gender and natural resource management. In integrated approach, uh, it follows incorporating multiple aspects of natural resource use into a system of sustainable management to meet the the goals of farmers and the goals of sustainability both. It is a proposed way to rationally balance the use and conservation of natural resources. This is a integrated approach of natural resource management. Then is the adaptive. It is based on learning process. It is based on learning process, that is implementing a management strategy, closely monitoring its effect, then adopting future actions based on observed results. This is the adaptive approach. Then we come to the precautionary approach. Then we come to the it says that if there is a strong suspicion that a certain activity may have environment harmful consequences, it is better to control that activity now rather than to wait for scientific evidences. It enables the decision makers to adapt precautionary measures when scientific evidences about an environment or hazard is uncertain. Okay, so this is the precautionary approach. Then we come to the community-based natural resource management. It is the people-centered approach to for the integration of conservation of natural resources, that is soil, water, tree, local biodiversity, and development to overcome the poverty, hunger, and also sometimes the diseases. The objective of this community-based natural resource management is economic benefit for the rural community. It considers the locals are better placed to conserve the natural resources. People will conserve natural resource only if the benefit exceeds the cost of conservation. And also the people will conserve a resource that is likely directly to their, that is linked likely directly to their quality of life. Then we come to gender and natural resource management. Gender, women, they are usually not been kept as a decision maker in any resource management, or they have underrepresentation in the decision making. But on the other hand, they rely heavily on natural resources for sustaining their families. The deterioration in natural resource base threatens rural livelihood largely through women. But through women, everything is this natural resource is deteriorating. So the improved education of rural women can play a key role in managing natural resources. It can be a boon if we educate the women, as they are the key role. They are playing the key role in managing the natural resources. So therefore, the goal of sustainable uses and management of natural resources can be achieved only through overall capacity building and empowerment of women through education, provision of healthcare, user-friendly technologies, and employment opportunities to women. Then we come to the natural resource governance. Natural resource conservation is integral component of development and ecologically balanced development. So we need to mainstream the natural resource management for integrating into all policies, plans, programs, budgetary processes, development goals, to attain this sustainable management of natural resources. Usually what happens whenever the state government, when we are seeing ki we don't have funds for this kind of activities, so we need to at that planning part only we need to put this into place. Then is the living in harmony with nature. The ultimate goal, what we can do from our side as a human being, as a citizen, that we have to live in harmony with nature for getting the good quality of life, for human well-being. And this is also depicted in the INDC goal. INDC goal are India's intentionally determined contributions to limit the I under the National Action Plan on Climate Change, the Government of India had launched in 2008 to mitigate and adapt the adverse climate, impact of climate change. So this action plan was launched in 2008 with 8 submissions: National Solar Mission, National Mission on Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency, National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, National Water Mission, National Mission for Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem, National Mission for Green India, National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, and National Mission for Strategic Knowledge Mission on Climate Change. So, considering these 8 missions, the National Action Plan on Climate Change was framed, but now it is being revised under intended nationally determined contribution, that which aims to which are our intended reductions in greenhouse gas emissions under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, in order to achieve the Paris Agreement target of containing global temperature rise to 2 degrees centigrade by the end of this century. So here also the main highlight is sustainable lifestyle. The first goal or the first point which they have mentioned is sustainable lifestyle. So we have to see what we are buying, how we are living, what are the sustainable living standards, what choices we are making daily, how can we reduce the environment degradation by our own simple lifestyles, simple choices. It aims at reduce personal and societal environmental impacts by making positive changes. We need to go for zero waste living, other things, whatever. Everybody knows that, but we are not following. We have to follow. Even after doing this program, at least we should be an aware citizen that we are following the lifestyle that will really add a very positive impact to the society or the people living nearby. Reduce the food packing. Why food packing is required? It is not required much. Why we are going for more packaging? Should go for zero waste, like earlier we were having in our villages and all. So simple lifestyle or sustainable lifestyle we need to go for, rather than the way we are living now. We are just creating the waste. How much waste when if we study the waste, how much we are creating individual person in the one day. How this MC and municipal corporation, the people are dumped this into the problem of the how to just dispose of all the waste we are creating, segregating waste and all this thing we need to take care of by a simple methods. There is one book by Ministry of MOEFNCC, Samanway. They have uh, introduced this book. This is harmonizing tradition and modernity. In this book, this is a very nice book in which they have mentioned how our tradition, our earlier traditions, and how our this lifestyles can be harmonized for a sustainable lifestyle. You can also read this book. This is really nice.
Ma'am, can you
Other
please
than this,
retell the name of the book?
name of the book is Samanway. Samanway.
Samanway.
Yeah.
And by whom?
This is published by MOEF and CC. You can type in Google. You can also find, I think, PDF form. It is available.
Okay. Thank you.
Then is a definition of ecosystem services. What are the ecosystem services? In the last slide also we have seen some services, but here we can get the definition of these services. Ecosystem services are the benefits provided to humans through the transformation of resources or environmental assets, including land, water, vegetation, and atmosphere, into a flow of essential goods and services, that is clean air, water, and food. So the natural resources is a foundation of ecosystem services to which human well-being is intimately linked. Ecosystem services are divided into four: provisioning, regulating, cultural, and supporting. Provisioning means they are supplying food, fresh water, wood and fiber, fuel. Regulating means climate regulation, flood regulation, disease regulation, water purification. Cultural means aesthetic, spiritual, educational, recreational. Supporting means nutrient cycling, soil formation, and primary production. So these are in details what under which category what all things we are getting as a service from the natural resources. So Millennium, then we come to Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. It was launched in 2001 by UN Environment Program to assess the consequences of ecosystem change for human well-being and recommended action needed. What are the action needed? So they have identified the services, the links between these services and human societies. So these links are what? They are ultimately linked to well-being, that is our security, personal security. They provide basic material for good life, adequate livelihoods, sufficient nutritious food, shelter, access to goods, health, strength, feeling well, access to clean air and water, mutual respect, good social relations, and freedom of choice and action. So these services are ultimately related to our well-being. So now we come, hope you have understood the basic concept of natural resources. What are natural resources? What are the causes of degradation? How we can conserve them? So now, if we have understood the basic concept, we can come to the next part, that is the watershed. What is the watershed? Watershed is a single unit which covers the area that naturally drains the rainwater into stream, river, lake, or wetland. It is also a synonym for catchment or basin of a river. The properly managed watersheds lead to sustainable management of water, soil, vegetation, providing the rural people self-sustaining food, water, fiber, firewood, fodder, health, and welfare. It is also to improve the livelihood of people while conserving and regenerating their natural resources. At the same time, we are taking care of the livelihood also, plus the regeneration of natural resources. So it is the integrating, it should be integrated approach. It should follow the integrated approach. So there are many characteristics in each and every watershed is having a distinct characteristics. Means no two watershed are identical. So, Bali 1980, they have classified the watersheds on the basis of area. Like sub watershed includes the area from 100 to 500 square kilometer, milli watershed 10 to 100 square kilometer, micro watershed 1 to 10 square kilometer, and mini watershed less than 1 square kilometer. Shape: watershed also differ in their shape based on many morphometric parameters like geology and structure. Then comes the physiography, the type of land, altitude is also responsible for the physiographical features. Then slope, it controls the rainfall distribution and movement, land utilization, and watershed behavior. Then climate is determining factor for management of all aspects of watershed. Drainage, in order the pattern, density of drainage have influence on the watershed, runoff, infiltration, and land management. That is the land use. Pattern is also vital for planning, programming, implementation of management of project on a watershed. The vegetation, the detailed information on vegetation helps in choosing the type, mode, and manner of greening the watershed. Then is the geology, the formation of watershed because due to the rocks which are found there, the structure they controls the watershed formation. Then the hydrology, the availability, quality, and distribution of surface water is basic for the greening of watershed. Hydrogeology, the groundwater availability, the characteristics of aquifers are also important. Then is the socio-economic data, the economic and health aspects of local communities, the crops and the animal husbandry or other tradition which are following are also very important. So in the nutshell, watershed management there is a degradation in watershed also due to erosion, deforestation, degradation of rangelands, climate change, loss of organic substances in the soil, physical degradation of lands, misuse of lands, reduction of availability of water, soil contamination, and reduction of natural vegetation and biodiversity. So there is a need of watershed management that to improve the livelihood of people while conserving and regenerating their natural resources. It involves managing land, water, energy, and greening the area, taking into account related socio-economic and technological components. So, the watershed ecology has vital role in sustainable development. It helps to generate the goods and services. It helps to regulate the flow of water, quality, and nutrient, and also maintains the landscape beauty. The foundation of watershed management is soil and water conservation. So the objectives of watershed management are conserving soil and water, improving the ability of land to hold water, rainwater harvesting and recharging, plantation of trees, crops and grasses, development of sustainable production system, increasing supply of high water quality and quantity of water in stream and other water bodies. So these are the basic objectives, but in watershed management, the local livelihood should also be emphasized uh, because uh, then only the watershed management are successful if we integrate the community-based participation approach for watershed management. So watershed management in India, it focuses on two things: water harvesting and soil conservation, with basically with three main objectives. That is to conserve and strengthen the natural resource base, to make natural resource based activities like agriculture more productive, and third is to support rural livelihood to alleviate poverty. There are many successful examples in the 1970s also, that is Sukhu Majri, Pani Panchayat, and Ralegaon Siddhi. So they are taking them into consideration. The large scale models of watershed development programs were also developed in 1980s. Then recently in 2000, the new policies evolved, that is promoting the local technologies and also recognizing NGOs as implementing partners. In watershed management model, farmer participation is more important based on cooperation rather than contract. So as a model, these two, 3 points I mentioned, stakeholder involvement in all activities from inception, including planning and implementation, is very important. Farmers collectively identify and prioritize the problems for possible technical interventions. Holistic, that it should also focus on environment and people both. Best management practice, After consultation with the villagers, the stakeholders, then only we should come for the management practice. Either it is vermicomposting or check dams or contour planting, etc. So many scientific tools are also available for the watershed management or the natural resource management. We should use these tools, these remote sensing GIS tools. Uh, they are not very complex. They are actually very simple if we follow. It saves a lot of time if we follow this. So overview I'll just give you. There are many details, but we are not going into very details. In the next chapters or next sessions we'll do. What is the role of spatial database in natural resource management and watershed management? What is geospatial technology? What is remote sensing? Remote sensing is acquiring information from remotely sensed data. That through satellite we take the pictures. We have the sensors in the satellite. We acquire the information, and then we use that satellite data for interpreting the things. What is GIS? Geographical Information System. It is data management, that is manipulation, analysis, visualization in the computer environment. Once we have the data, we use this data to analyze various things. Then there is a GPS. What is that is you everybody knows these days. It is for knowing the accurate position where it is located. So GIS, it is a powerful tool for solving the real world problems, environmental problems. We can delineate all the land use, streets, districts, parcels, water table, all things. We can make layers, then we can overlay all these layers to find whatever we have to find the answers to, or whatever is our query. We can visualize, manipulate, analyze, and display the spatial data. We can describe where this tree is located, where in this whole world or India, or where in district, in where taluk it is located, what is the GPS location, and then we can write about the information, what is the attribute of this tree. So how it works is we input the data, we create the database, we do query analysis, we visualize the things, whatever we are, what kind of story, what kind of query we can do. For example, where is that uh, thing located? Who is the owner of that land? Or give me the data which is greater than this much area. We can also do the modeling, hazard modeling. What will be the effects of this hazard? If this scenario is there, we can simulate the things and get the result. Some of the examples which we have done earlier, like in Andaman and Nicobar, we had this natural resource information system. Under that, we had delineated or identified the forest type, forest density, growing stock estimation, what are the economically important plant species available in that area, which site is suitable for tourism, what are the groundwater prospects in that area. So what is the land resource development plan, how we can make that. See, this is the area we can see. So here we have classified this which forest types are available in that forest type, also which are the economically important tree species, where they are available, where are the patches where we can find that. Then beat wise map, in what is the density in that beat wise. Density means how much dense we have categorized, greater than 40%, higher dense, moderated dense, lower dense. Likewise, we have identified that natural resource base. Then watershed based management in Uttaranchal. There was an area in Teri Garhwal, Agla watershed. Here also, what we have tried to find out that we first of all we have created the database. Then which afforestation and reforestation sites are best for various forestry schemes in that watershed. So for evaluating and assessment of site suitability for different schemes of afforestation. For this also we have created the forest cover maps, land use map, forest density map using satellite data. For satellite data, we have rectified data, digitally enhanced that data, then interpreted that data and created their type map, land use map, density map. Simultaneously, we have almost also taken the topographic map, we have taken the ground truth information, soil map, then this slope map we have created from SRTM data. That is another data from there we can create the slope map and aspect map. So when all these layers we get, socioeconomic data also we get for analyzing the socioeconomic this biotic pressure, then we overlay all these layers, and then after overlaying all these layers, we get the we uh, we we give the proper equation which area we want, and then we get the result, we get the site according to our uh, choices. So this is the satellite data. It looks like this red areas which we can see this is the vegetation, but the pattern and other things we look for when we interpret visually and digitally. The methods are different. For today's purpose, I can just tell you this patch depicts the other forest, and this patch is depicting the oak forest. This is depicting the grassland with oak scrub forest, and this is depicting the simple grassland. So after interpretation, we this have made the forest type map and the land use map. So the different colors you can see: oak forest, the deodar forest, plantation scrub. Then within that forest, what is the density? Then the density we have created. How much dense forest it is there? Forest is then slope we have created. What is the slope of that area? Then we have created the soil depth. Where are the villages located in this watershed? Where are the roads located? Major roads. Where is the drainage? Then buffering we have done. Matlab, from that point, this much kilometer away from the these circles, which we can see. Similarly, the road buffers we have created, drainage buffers we have created. So after creating all this data, all this work which we have done, now comes how the management we want to do, so that the schemes get successfully implemented. It should not get failure. So for example, the first one we see social forestry site for fuel wood and fodder tree. So in that equation, when we have all the layers, we will say all forest types, see from all forest type where forest density is 10 to 40%. Ownership outside the legal forest should not be in the legal forest. Slope should be less than 55%. Soil depth should be 50 to 100. And distance from village point should be 0 to 1000 meters. Distance from road should be this much, and distance from river should be this much. So when you give all this equation, it will give you that area. It will give that area which you want. So that area, its measurements, its location, you will give to the whosoever forest people or other people who are will be doing this work. So they will take that area for this scheme, which will be so likewise 10 which will be best suited for this scheme. So likewise 10 schemes I've classified. Like second is social forestry site for shrubby vegetation, a forestry scheme under pasture scheme, reforestation inside oak forest, reforestation inside oak and oak mixed forest, and agroforestry, and likewise. See, so when one by one, when the equation is run, every time that area comes. So area is depicting. It is self-explanatory. You need not. You can see the villages also. Which villages are falling in that area? Where is the river? Or other conditions. Where is the metal road? In every scheme, in this, see, a forestation scheme, the patches are coming. Here we can do that. So area comes. So this is a good technique, so that the time is also saved. Otherwise, in the hilly area, it is very difficult to go and see and then work out. It takes lots of months to wait for the good season to go and decide what scheme is better. So this is all for today. Thank you so much. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Ranjit, yes. Now we can open the session for discussion.
If anybody wants to ask some question or want to discuss something, they
Yeah.
can ask.